everyone, I'm Julia Kelly, an astrologer, a human, I think, and in this video I'm going to share what you can expect for this upcoming eclipse season in October of 2023, which is our last eclipse season of this year. In this video I'm going to share horoscopes for each zodiac sign, and I'm also going to talk about what everyone can expect as an overview for this eclipse season starting on October 14th to October 28th. Before we dive in, I also want to give a notice that I still have readings available right now. I previously had my personal readings closed for quite some time, but they are currently available on my website at julia-kelly.com. And if you are watching this video here on YouTube, you can use the code YouTube for a discount. So if you'd like to book a reading with me, now is a great time to do so. Since we are getting towards the end of this year, this is a great time to start looking into 2024 and also doing some reflection on the things that have happened this year as well. That said, eclipse season is going to be a really great time to do a lot of that reflection, looking back at 2023, looking at cycles in your life that perhaps have even gone on since 2021. I'm going to talk about that. And this eclipse season is going to give us a real great push into doing something new, starting something again, trying something in a new way. And if you've needed some courage or motivation in your life, this eclipse season is going to help you to step into that. This eclipse season will start October 14th with a solar eclipse in Libra, and it will close out on October 28th with a full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. That said, let's start with the basics. What is an eclipse season? It's when life goes to I'm just kidding. For a lot of people, eclipse seasons are times of major transformation in your life. A lot of times eclipse season is a wave coming through into your life to clear something out so that it can create space for new life to begin. Oftentimes, if there's anything that feels stuck or stagnant in your life and you're like, when will this be over? Or when can I turn the page of this chapter? Eclipse seasons help to do that. This is why eclipse seasons do tend to get a reputation for being pretty powerful in people's lives, because if you are working with the changes that are happening with eclipse seasons, it's a really incredible time to take action in your life or to just allow something to happen and to embody or embrace that transformation. Other times, if you are trying to resist the changes that are happening during eclipse seasons, they can be pretty brutal. Because if you're holding on really tightly to something, eclipse seasons are here to help you let that go, whether you want to or not. When we're thinking about eclipse seasons, it is marked by a solar event and a lunar event. And fun fact, we have those every moon cycle. We have a new moon and then a full moon through each lunar cycle throughout the year. Eclipse season is when these lunar and solar events are just turned up a bit and the energy is more potent, and it can be more transformational in that way because of where the moon is at and where the earth is at in its path around the sun. In other words, a solar eclipse is when we have a new moon that is in direct alignment with the sun, which means that the moon comes between earth and the sun, and in a total solar eclipse, this is exact, which means that the moon blocks out all light from the sun for a moment. When we have an annular solar eclipse, which is what we have on October 14th, this is when the moon doesn't totally block out the sun and it leaves a little bit of light around the moon, which is why this upcoming solar eclipse is known as a ring of fire. On the other side of that, when we have a lunar eclipse, this is when the earth is sitting directly between the sun and the moon. On a total lunar eclipse, the earth blocks out all light from the sun to the moon, which is why total lunar eclipses can create an effect of the moon turning red because all light from the sun is being blocked out. That said, we have a partial lunar eclipse coming up on October 28th in Taurus, so all of the light will not be blocked out, but it still will be an eclipse. What does this mean astrologically? When we have an eclipse season astrologically, this means that the new moon and the full moon and the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse are happening relative to where the north node and the south node are in astrology. And that's what makes this eclipse season really powerful, because the nodes have shifted signs as of July 17th of this year. The nodes were previously in Taurus and in Scorpio in the tropical zodiac, and they are now in Aries and Libra. This means that this is our official first eclipse season in a long time, with the nodes now in Aries and Libra. The last time the nodes were in Aries and Libra was in 2014 to 2015, and the last time they were in this exact position with the South Node in Libra and the North Node in Aries was all the way back to 2005 to 2006. And you can think back to those times of your life to understand something that may be coming full circle or something that may be being completed, such as a very long cycle in your life that goes all the way back to 2014 or all the way back to 2005. And as we go into this eclipse season as well, it can be really helpful to think about the prior eclipse season that we had earlier this year on April 19th to the 20th to May 5th. On April 19th, we had a total solar eclipse in Aries. And this is interesting because at the time, the nodes were still in Taurus and Scorpio, but this was what started to open the energy into this Aries and Libra axis. And on May 5th, we had a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. So that was the last lunar eclipse in Scorpio that we had, with the nodes being in Taurus and Scorpio. So in other words, you can think back to something that may have happened around that time to get a better understanding as to what this eclipse season may point back to. It may not be the exact same event or experience or emotion that happened earlier this year, because this is quite a different eclipse cycle, but it may have some kind of a connective thread between some events that happened earlier this year and what may come up in this eclipse cycle. That said, what do you need to know about this eclipse season? We kick off this eclipse season with an annular solar eclipse in Libra on October 14th. This will be at 21 degrees of Libra, and this will be exact at 10:55 a.m. Pacific time. Now, because this is a solar eclipse, this means that you will be able to see it in the sky. And this one is actually visible in parts of North and South America. So if you're watching from those areas, you will actually be able to see this eclipse, which isn't always the case. And of course, for a solar eclipse, this is when you don't want to look directly at the sun. Blinded by the light. Exactly. And again, because this is not a total solar eclipse, but an annular solar eclipse, this means that there will be some light from the sun still around the moon, which gives it a ring of fire effect. And if you do get a chance to look at it in a safe way, this will be pretty cool to see. And astrologically, if you have a Libra placement around 21 degrees, or if you're just a Libra placement, this is going to be very powerful for you. Stay tuned for your specific horoscope a little bit later on. And then we close out this eclipse season with a partial lunar eclipse in Taurus on October 28th. And this eclipse will be exact at 5 degrees of Taurus at 1:24 p.m. Pacific time. So this is going to be a full moon. And for a lot of people, this will just look like any other full moon, but it's going to be a very powerful full moon at that. And if you have a Taurus placement, this is going to be extra emphasized for you all. So now I'm going to talk a bit in general about this eclipse season, what you need to know astrologically, how this may affect everybody, some of the themes that you may see come up in the world, in people around you, and in your own life as well. So thinking in general about eclipse seasons, they can be very powerful times for things to change in your life. If you've been waiting for a cycle to close out or a new cycle to begin, eclipse season is going to help with that. And again, if you're resisting any kind of a change in your life, eclipse season may feel a little bit bumpy, but that's why it's great to work with the energies of the eclipses so that anything that is naturally evolving or changing gives you an opportunity to work with that energy. Thinking specifically about this eclipse season, this is a really powerful one. And you might hear that a lot in general with all astrological information, but truly this one is going to be really profound for a lot of people. And this is because it's closing out the major eclipses that we've had in Taurus and Scorpio for almost 2 years now. And it's opening up the eclipses that we're going to have in Libra and Aries. And with that, we're going to open the energy with Libra and Aries on that October 14th solar eclipse. And the solar eclipse is a new moon, so it's bringing new life to something. But what's interesting about this is it will be conjunct the South Node. So it's asking you to bring new life or to breathe new energy into something in your life, perhaps do something for the first time or try something even if it feels like there's a lot of fear around it. And simultaneously notice how as you do that, it may help you to release something in your life that no longer fits. Because it's in Libra, for a lot of people, this is going to have to do with relationships, and I'll talk a bit more about that. And the full moon lunar eclipse that we have in Taurus on October 28th, this is going to close out that long cycle in Taurus and Scorpio that has been going on since November of 2021. So I'm going to talk a bit about this as well, but this is going to be a really powerful eclipse. And for some people, it might seem a little bit wild because it's kind of bringing all of that energy from the eclipse cycles that we've had go on since the end of 2021. It's bringing all of that energy to a close. So I want to first mention how important it is right now to review the eclipses that have gone on in your life since the end of 2021. And because it's a full moon, the emphasis on closing the door to something might be a little bit extra powerful than usual. What also makes this eclipse cycle stand out as opposed to other eclipses is that we have a very common theme here going on with this eclipse season, which is that both of these eclipses will be ruled by Venus. And some of you may have heard a lot of talk about Venus this year, and that is because Venus has been at the center of the stage this year as we had a Venus retrograde going on in July to September. And this Venus retrograde, we had it in Leo, and it actually just recently closed out its full cycle, meaning that it came out of shadow period only on October 7th. So Venus retrograde started on July 22nd, and it ended on September 3rd, and the shadow period started on June 19th, and it just completed on October 7th. For a lot of people, you may have noticed a very specific theme, or maybe something in your life felt really stuck or stagnant during this time. This eclipse season is now going to move that energy. And this is a great time to reflect on what happened in your life during Venus retrograde, because Venus is ruling these eclipses. So Venus has just been taking a break, stretching its arms, looking around, getting a view, or for some people, it may have been causing chaos. But Venus has been in a retrograde cycle and it's just coming out of it. So it's just starting to speed up and get its footing again. It's just now coming out of the shadow, which means that by Venus ruling these eclipse cycles, it is not in its full functionality right now. It is just coming out of a hiatus, as you may. So as it's speeding back up and as it's kind of getting back into its normal flow, there may be some things that come to the surface because they have been on hold. And eclipse season is all about bringing things to the surface. Furthermore, Pluto is also going direct on October 10th, right after Venus comes out of shadow and right before eclipse season starts. And Pluto has been retrograde since May. And Pluto is a big fan of bringing things to the surface. So to summarize all of this, it's important to look at how Venus retrograde has shown up in your life and what has gone on so far this year in 2023, because this eclipse season is likely going to bring some things to the surface that have felt confusing, unclear, stuck, or stagnant, and it may also reveal something to you that is important to take action on, or that if you are not meant to take action on it right now, it is planting seeds for something that will occur throughout 2024. And again, that has a lot to do with the fact that the Libra eclipse on October 14th is opening the door to this eclipse cycle in Libra and Aries. So thinking about the common themes for this eclipse cycle, because both eclipses are ruled by Venus, Venus rules Libra and it also rules Taurus. And because we're just now really coming out of that full Venus retrograde cycle, for a lot of people, Venus is going to be really important to understand in this eclipse experience. And Venus has several associations, but it's most connected to relationships, values, money, aesthetics, styles, and I really give emphasis to Venus being connected to attachments. So you may notice with this eclipse season for everyone that relationships and money and attachments are really the center focus as to something that needs to change or evolve, or looking at something from a different perspective. And furthermore, Libra as an archetype in a zodiac sign has a lot to do with relationships, and Taurus as an archetype in a zodiac sign has a lot to do with money. So we're starting this eclipse season with a focus on relationships, and we're closing it out with a focus on ownership, assets, and finances. Now again, I'm going to get into more specific themes for each zodiac sign, but this is something that everyone may notice, that this eclipse season is really about looking at your relationships. And this may be something that it feels like you hear it a lot, or relationships are already just a part of your life naturally as Everyone has some relationship in their life that they may be focused on, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, some kind of a business partnership, or just the experiences that we have connecting and exchanging with other people in our everyday lives. That said, this eclipse season is really meant to turn the dial on something, to shift something to a different level, or to show you a different perspective on something. And again, because it's being ruled by Venus, both of these eclipses, it's going to have a lot to do with your attachment to something, an attachment to a relationship, an attachment to an outcome, an attachment to an expectation around something. And so as we go into this eclipse season and as we go through it, it may be very helpful to remember at times that if you feel like you're trying to hold on to something really tightly, or if you feel that there's an emphasis on an attachment in your life, this eclipse season may be asking you to release something or to surrender to something. And thinking about how Venus is ruling both of these eclipses as well, what's interesting with that is that Venus is in Virgo. So Venus is doing its own thing in Virgo now. It's no longer in Leo, which is where it was during the retrograde cycle. And so as Venus is in Virgo, it's kind of picking up the pieces of the retrogrades. It's putting things together. It wants structure. It wants something to make sense. It wants clarity. It wants organization. And so as it's ruling these eclipses that are going to have a lot to do with relationships and money, a lot of people may spend time organizing finances, money, your home space, and really having an opportunity to restructure your relationships. One of the themes I've been thinking about for this eclipse season is, if you are old enough to remember MySpace, if you were on MySpace, or if you've heard about MySpace top friends, this is what has been coming up in my own nostalgia for this eclipse season, is remembering how there was this feature, which maybe it was debatable if that was a feature that should have been online at all, but you could organize your friends in an order, and this was known as the top friends. So you have one person as your first friend, and then someone as your fifth friend. And I remember as being really young, this was such a social dynamic that went on with people putting attention to who was in their top friends, and if you were in someone else's top friends, it was a whole thing. And it's making me think about this eclipse season because there was a structural organization around friendship or relationships. Who was your first friend? Who was your last friend? Was someone even on your top friends list? And if not, why? And so this is something that is kind of silly, but it may also be helpful for thinking about this restructuring around relationships that may happen with this eclipse season. There may be someone in your life who's been really close to you for a long time. You've had a really close connection, and maybe there's something that's just naturally changing in that relationship. And maybe someone who hasn't been so close to you before, maybe you're starting to develop a closer connection with them. Maybe it's time to clear your entire top friends list out and create new space for people to come into your life, especially with friendships and close connections. And for other people, maybe this will have more to do with letting people in at all, with letting people get close to you, with creating healthy intimacy. So all of these things may be themes that could come up during this eclipse season, and essentially it comes back to understanding your identity as it relates to your relationships. So I'm going to talk a bit now about the solar eclipse that we have on October 14th in Libra, and then I'm going to shed some light on the lunar eclipse on October 28th, and then I'm going to get right into the horoscopes for each zodiac sign. So this solar eclipse in Libra on October 14th, again, this is going to open the door to these eclipse cycles in Aries and Libra, and you can think back to April 19th when we had the solar eclipse in Aries earlier this year. For many people, this is going to be about opening a door to something in your life. Because it deals with the South Node in Libra, it's going to ask you to release things related to Libra. The archetype of Libra has a lot of different qualities, and it often deals with relationships. And not only looking at a specific relationship in your life, but looking at how you show up in relationships at all, looking at the philosophies that you have around relationships, looking at the needs that you have in relationships, and really taking time to understand how you show up and having a reflection through the people that you're connected with. This solar eclipse is going to highlight where you might be holding back in relationships from being your best self, where you might be relying on a relationship that's not serving you, where you might be playing out old cycles that have gone on for a long time. It's essentially bringing light to an area of your life that you may need to look at as it relates to having healthy, sustainable, consistent relationships. One of the things that can be helpful to think about with this solar eclipse is looking at your attachment style and looking at the way that you have consistently attracted certain people in your life. This can be romantic and understanding the romantic cycles that have gone on in your life. For other people, this might be platonic and understanding the friendship dynamics. And for a lot of people, this is going to have to do with all of that. Understanding what a relationship is at all and how your friendships may feed certain dynamics in your life and how you may be looking for other kind of community settings, other kind of opportunities to show up that maybe aren't present in your life right now. This solar eclipse is giving you an opportunity to take a step in a new direction in your relationships. If you've been in relationship cycles in your life that have not felt fulfilling, this solar eclipse may show you that. It may show you where something is feeling draining, where someone is not giving you the same kind of effort you're giving them, or perhaps where you are trying to control someone else in a relationship. There's an opportunity to step back and get a clear view at your relationships and at how you're showing up and taking accountability within those. But in general, this solar eclipse is really going to highlight where there's an opportunity in your life to take a chance on something, to try something new. But because it is with the South Node, it may come with a lot of fears. It may come with hesitation. It's important to recognize the difference between when you have fear and when you have caution or intuition. Sometimes our mind and our body is trying to protect us from something that happened before, but sometimes when those things can come up as a caution, those are not actually based on the real outcome or risk that's present. And so the solar eclipse may show you not only where you have an opportunity to do something new or to be courageous in something, but it may also point to the fears that are holding you back with that. And that's where it can be really helpful to look at the solar eclipse in Aries that we had earlier this year in April, because that eclipse was conjunct the North Node, and it was highlighting the North Node in Aries, which has a lot to do with being courageous, with really moving forward with something, with putting your fears to the side and doing something anyway. And so this solar eclipse may show you the fears or the doubts or the hesitations or even the relationships or relationship dynamics that are keeping you from moving forward with something, from taking a chance on yourself, or from having courage to try something. So this solar eclipse is a really great time to just take an inventory of your relationships, see if they're serving you, see if you're serving them, understand the dynamics of relationships altogether, and taking a step back from something may be the way to do that. At the same time, it may provide you with an opportunity to also address your fears or your beliefs that are keeping you in those cycles. Sometimes you have to take a first step in something. If you're waiting for the fear to go away first, you may be waiting forever. But by trying something or taking that first step, you may start to notice that the fear is stepping aside. A question you can ask yourself for the solar eclipse is, what fear is holding you back from trying something in your life or taking a chance on yourself or within your relationships? And so looking at the lunar eclipse now that we have on October 28th, this is in Taurus. This again will be a full moon, a partial lunar eclipse. And this full moon might be pretty intense for some people because it's going to have a lot to do with Mars and Mercury and Jupiter. And so putting all of these planets together in alignment is going to mean that a lot of people may feel more of an emphasis in their physical body. You may feel more of a push towards something, or you may feel that there's more consequences to your actions. The moon will be conjunct Jupiter in Taurus, which means for a lot of people, this is going to have to do with emotional growth. A lot of people may be learning how to regulate emotions better or to just manage your emotional health a bit better. That said, Mars and Mercury are going to be on the other side of this, conjunct the Sun in a wide conjunction in Scorpio. And Mars and Jupiter will actually be in an exact opposition on this lunar eclipse. This is not a time to gamble on something that doesn't feel safe for you. And I mentioned with the solar eclipse in Libra, that is really showing you which path in your life is worth stepping forward on. Well, this lunar eclipse may show you what is over, what has ended, and what is not worth going back to. What's interesting about this lunar eclipse is that the nodes are already in Aries and Libra. And so for a lot of people, it's not even about taking action on something, closing something out. You may not have to do anything, but rather it's likely going to have to do with realizing that something in your life is over, something in your life has ended, but you may be trying to bring it back to life. And that's where the consequences of this full moon may be heightened, meaning that if you're trying to play around with something that didn't work for you in the past, if you're gambling on something that is really not worth it, the consequences of those actions may not be what you desire. And that just has to do with the heightened energy around Mars and Jupiter. Mars can be a bit of a dangerous planet at times, and I don't say that in any way to instill fear in anyone, because that's not the point, but more so that it can just have a bit more of a sharp edge to it. So it's like if you touch a hot stove enough, eventually you will get burned. And if you touch it after getting burned, the consequences may be worse than they were before. And thinking about this holistically, this Taurus and Scorpio eclipse cycle started off in November of 2021. That was when we started to go into these eclipse series. And so you may have had an event or events happened around that time in November of 2021, which was also when we were entering a Venus retrograde cycle. And so a lot of you may have had events that happened during that time that are going to be really closing out now. But again, for most people, this isn't going to have to do with any action that you need to take on your part. So if you feel like you need to go do something or say something or stop something or control something, it's likely going to be the opposite effect, meaning that it's more about surrender and acceptance, letting something be, letting something go, accepting that something is over. And for a lot of people, this may have to do with relationships, again, because it has that Venus emphasis. Sometimes it's not easy to close a door on something that you know at one point in time served you, or you wanted at one point in time, that you desired at a point in time, and maybe you still have those desires. But just because you desire something doesn't always mean that it's the best thing for you or that it's healthy for you. And that's where this eclipse in Taurus may show you that not all of the desires that you have are actually helping you for the future. Not all of the things that you have wanted may be serving you anymore. And so the thing that I would give advice for this eclipse is to look at something in your life that perhaps has already ended. See where something is already over. Maybe it's not even presently in your life anymore. For some people, it may be present, but emotionally it may be over. Something may have ended. And with this eclipse, it may give you an opportunity to really close the door on it, to accept that it's over, to have an emotional release from it, or to even release energy that's been stored in your physical body related to a cycle in your life. And so I won't lie, for this partial lunar eclipse in Taurus, some people may feel a real energy going on around this time. Things may feel heightened, things may feel extra emotional, but this is a really good time to practice grounding and centering and thinking about the bigger picture. The moon will be conjunct Jupiter, and Jupiter loves a big picture. So if you find yourself getting into a specific emotion or feeling overwhelmed with something, it can be a really good time to practice objective thinking and to get outside of your current circumstances so that you can remember the bigger picture to something, or that you can see something from a healthier perspective. And a question you can ask yourself with this lunar eclipse is, what are you dangerously holding on to? And what are you holding on to that is already over or has already ended? And how can you find gratitude, celebration, and an honoring of something that is over? Okay, so let's now get into the individual horoscopes for each zodiac sign. I always recommend watching for your sun, moon, and rising, but if any specific placement in your chart calls to you, watch for that. And the rising sign, if based on an accurate birth time, is going to be the most connected to your actual natal chart. And within these readings, I'm also going to give you a question or a journaling prompt that may be helpful for this eclipse season. Aries placements. Well, this is a really major eclipse cycle for you, and a lot of you may already know that there's a lot going on in your life this year. Hopefully it's been a really empowering time for a lot of you so far, because we had the solar eclipse in your sign on April 19th earlier this year, and then as of July 17th, the nodes are now officially in your sign. So the North Node is in your sign, and the South Node is in Libra. As we're going into this eclipse season though, it may shake things up for a lot of you, especially in your relationships. I've talked a lot about the relationship emphasis of this eclipse cycle for everyone, but this is really important for you all because the South Node is in your 7th house, and the 7th house deals with long-term commitments and partnerships and relationships. When I'm really looking at these eclipses for you, Aries, I'm seeing that it has a lot to do with looking at the bigger picture of your life and kind of asking yourself if you feel satisfied with the direction that you're going in. And not only if you feel satisfied with what's right in front of you, but if you feel that the things that you are developing and working on in yourself are giving you space to create that direction for your future. And because it deals with relationships, a lot of you may be noticing how this is coming up within a relationship. The North Node is in your sign, which means it's in your 1st house, especially for Aries risings. But also for Aries suns, the North Node is essentially eclipsing your identity. And so a lot of you may be going through a transformation in who you are, how you see yourself, how you identify. You may be exploring different ways of perception around how you style yourself, how you look, how other people see you, and just kind of wanting to perhaps adventure into different arenas of who you are. And this is where relationships might be a big theme, because if you've had a relationship in your life, this can be a romantic relationship, friendships, etc. Oftentimes those relationships are connected to the identities that we have at certain times of our life. If you have people in your life who've been there for a long time and they've seen you evolve and change, and you have people in your life who give you that space to change and evolve, those are relationships that may be more emphasized or become more important to you right now. At the same time, if you're noticing that you don't feel safe in your relationships to change and evolve, if you feel like you have to stay within a certain identity that you've been in for a long time, this may be where you're noticing that you need a bit more space from those relationships. And it's important to emphasize that it doesn't have to be so black and white. It doesn't have to be one relationship versus another, but it can also just mean that this is a time where a relationship dynamic that you've had is changing. You might be changing simultaneous to someone else, and allowing a relationship that you've had to kind of end while a new one begins. Well, that may happen with the same person. Let's say you're in a romantic relationship, you're in a partnership. You may be noticing that you yourself are changing in this partnership right now. Maybe your partner is also changing, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're not going through a time of transformation. In fact, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they're at a time where they need consistency. They want you to be the same as you've been because that feels safe to them. This is a time where you may be noticing that there's an emphasis on learning how to communicate your needs and express yourself within this relationship. And it may not mean that you're always getting the response or the reaction that you would hope to have from someone else. In fact, a lot of this eclipse season may have to do with releasing control over how other people are showing up and realizing that you are only in control of how you show up. And it's often easier said than done, but this eclipse season may help you to really see how that is important to practice within your relationships, and specifically within a really close partnership that you have, whether that is romantic, a long-term friend, or even in a business partnership as well. But to tell it to you straight as well, a lot of you through this eclipse cycle from now until 2024, a lot of you may be releasing some relationships in your life. And if you feel like you're not ready for that, if you feel like that's too intense, no worries, we're gonna have some more eclipse cycles going on, but the emphasis isn't that you need to release a relationship per se. It's more so that you're embodying and embracing your full version of who you are. And that may mean that you need to explore that for a little bit. Maybe there's some things you've always wanted to do in your life and you haven't done them, and you may be realizing that now is the time when you need to surround yourself with people who are also inviting that exploration into their life, or who are just supporting you in your own exploration. So that solar eclipse that we have on October 14th, with it being in your 7th house, it's going to have a lot to do with those relationships. Now, the lunar eclipse that we have at the end of the month on October 28th, that's going to be in your 2nd house of finances, money, assets, ownership. A lot of you may be going through a change in the things that you own, in the way that you are earning income, in the things that you're spending money on. And because it has such a connection with the relationships in your life, for some people this may look like shared assets, things that you own with someone else, or trying to make decisions around your living space, planning for the future, and really understanding what it means to commit to something in your life, especially if it involves a financial commitment. So some of you may be having to really take some time to look at the commitments in your life and see if they're leading you where you want to go. And simultaneously, it may give you an opportunity to reorganize, reassess something, or to just communicate around something that deals with shared ownership or shared assets with someone else, such as getting married or buying a house with someone, or just investing in something in your life and understanding what it means to do that with someone else. Lastly, a lot of you may be investing in self-help or exploring things that are going to help you later on in life, and this is a great time to do that. A question that may be helpful to journal on or reflect on this eclipse season, Aries, is how can you build with others in a healthy way that also allows you to maintain your own identity and authenticity? Thank you, Aries, for watching. All right, Taurus placements. So this eclipse season obviously has a lot to do with you, as we have the lunar eclipse in Taurus in your sign on October 28th. That said, we start off this eclipse season with the solar eclipse in Libra, which will be in your 6th house, or the 6th house to Taurus. This eclipse season is going to have a lot to do with looking at your habits, your routines, and your work environments and commitments. And just to kind of get that big picture again, this eclipse cycle has gone on in your sign since the end of November of 2021. So there's a lot of things that may have gone on since then in your life, and you may finally be coming to a point where you can reflect on it or see it from afar, or really just take some time to honor the things that have changed within you. The North Node was in your sign until July of this year. And so a lot of you may have had a major shift or opportunity or change in your life that has brought new perspectives on something or has allowed you to see yourself differently. One of the things that I'm seeing as a theme for you Taurus placements is that this eclipse season is going to show you where you have some hidden talent, hidden abilities, and perhaps even allowing you to tap into some more mysticism in your life. Some of you may be feeling a bit more psychic than usual, or if you feel that you are already very intuitive, you may be finding new ways to express this or to show this to others. Some of you may be in relationships that are allowing you to start to embody different sides of yourself. Maybe there's been something that's felt really taboo in your life, or you've been afraid to admit that you're interested in something or that you want to try something. And this eclipse season may help you to start to realize that it's safe to explore those things. And for a lot of you, this may have to do with some kind of a career change going on in your life. Some of you may have planted a seed for something new a while ago, whether this was an actual intention that you set, a change that you made, action that you took, or if this was just an idea that you started to ponder. Maybe you're in a certain industry or career field, and you might be thinking about a different field or wondering what your life would be like with a different lifestyle and routine around your work. This eclipse season may show you that something is coming to an end in your work life, and specifically as it relates to your day-to-day life, your lifestyle, your morning routine, your evening routine, the space that you have available for the things that you're interested in. And you may be noticing that you're coming to the end of a cycle with that, and it's giving you more space to consider adding something to your life that is going to be beneficial to you long term, not just with your career, but also with your lifestyle, having time to spend with the people you care about, having time to do things that are healthy for you. And in fact, a lot of you may be specifically focused on your health during this time. Some of the things that I'm talking about right now, they may not manifest right away for you. So a lot of you may be even thinking about a career change or creating a healthier lifestyle in some area of your life, And some of these things may be starting to open up to you this eclipse season. And you may notice that by the end of 2024, that you've actually made a shift or a change in your life and in your lifestyle. And if some of you are listening to this and thinking, I could use that, or I want that, but that doesn't feel possible, well, hang in there, because this eclipse season is going to show you what is possible. As we're opening up to the Libra and Aries energy, that is going to show you where things have been hidden in your life that are starting to be revealed. This may be fears or beliefs or things that you thought were stuck the way that they are, but you might be starting to notice that there's actually potential to grow out of something, to shift something. And on the other side of that, as we are closing out the eclipse cycles in Taurus and Scorpio, a lot of you may have been focused on something specifically in your life for the past couple of years. Could be in work, could be in relationships, could be thinking about the way that you want to do something, or just having to focus on something very practically in your life. You may now be starting to get more space opening up to you that is showing you that there's more possibility, whether this is in your work environment, your home environment, or just thinking holistically about your life path. And again, because these eclipse cycles are really closing the door on the Taurus and Scorpio energy and opening it to the Libra and Aries energy, some of the things that I'm mentioning may not be obvious until after this eclipse cycle or even until next year. But that's why right now is a really great time to reflect on everything that's happened in your life since the end of 2021 and especially through 2022 to earlier this year. You can think back to April 19th to May 5th earlier this year in that eclipse cycle and notice if something changed or shifted or ended around then. Because what's coming up for you this eclipse cycle may show you that it is actually safe to try something new, to move forward with something, or to just embrace something that you've created, that you've moved forward with previously. If there's something that is new in your life that still feels like you're adjusting to it, by the end of this eclipse cycle, you may start to feel fully adjusted. As an example, let's say that you're in a relationship that is still feeling a bit new. You may start to feel a bit more safe or a bit more free to express different sides of yourself within this relationship now that there's some trust that's been built. Furthermore, let's say that you started a new job within the past couple of years, or even more recently than that. With this eclipse cycle in October, this may show you that you see more of a future within this career, you see more of a potential there, or you finally feel that you're adjusted or that you have some level of authority in what you're doing. Now, for others, this may be closing out a really long cycle in your life, perhaps one that's gone on for a long time, 12 to 20 years, and you may be noticing that something that you thought worked for you or that did work for you for that amount of time is not going to work for you for the next cycle of your life. And this may be a bigger emphasis on reflecting on this past cycle, whether this is 2 years, 12 years, or 20 years for some of you, and thinking about the things that you've learned, the things that you've gathered, the things that you've enjoyed and experienced, the highs, the lows, the in-betweens, and giving yourself space to honor that and time to really just sit with it. For a lot of you, this eclipse season is not going to have to do as much with taking action, but perhaps just observing what's happening around you, what's already happened, and what's coming up within you. For this full moon lunar eclipse in your sign, a lot of you may feel very physically connected to this. There may be something that feels a little bit overwhelming or exhausting around this time. And my advice to you by this lunar eclipse on October 28th is to give yourself the space and the time that you need to really honor your physical body. If you've gone through something really emotional, your physical body may need to process that, or you may need to rest. If you've done something that has been really exhaustive in general, you may just need some time to rest, relax, and step away from a situation that's gone on. At the same time, some of you may be dealing with situations where you don't feel like you can step away from something, and this is a really good time to develop skills and hobbies or habits that allow you to have that release, to have that relaxation, to have that regulation, even in situations that feel challenging. And so a lot of you may be practicing those things in your daily life, perhaps in a work environment. And overall, it seems like it's going to be a great time for you to reflect on the things that have already happened and notice that there's skills that are coming up in you, a hobby, an interest, or even some mysticism or skills that you are just now tapping into. And a question that may be helpful to ask yourself or to journal on this eclipse season, Taurus, is how can you practice having the courage to reveal your true self or more parts of yourself within the environments and relationships that you're in? Geminis, welcome to eclipse season. This eclipse season is going to have a lot to do with relationships, romance, desires and attachments, and children for some of you. The overall theme that I see for a lot of you is rebirth in your desires, realizing what desires that you may have been pursuing or understanding in your life that are no longer active, and finding new passion and inspiration for things in your life moving forward. And for a lot of you, this is going to have to do with how you're showing up in dating scenarios and in romantic situations. And this is because you have the solar eclipse going on in Libra in your 5th house. And this is also where the South Node is. So the solar eclipse on October 14th is going to have a lot to do with bringing attention to an old pattern in romantic desires or in relationships, in dating scenarios, or in the way that you have fun, express yourself, the way that you play. Those are the things that may come to the surface right now, and to ask you if you are still interested in the things that you were pursuing before. As an example of this, some of you may be dating, and maybe you've been casually dating for a while, and this solar eclipse may show you that maybe you're not interested in casually dating anymore. Maybe you've completed that chapter of your life. Maybe you're interested in a more committed relationship. On the other side of that, some of you may realize that what you thought you wanted in a relationship isn't exactly what you're looking for. Maybe the things that you looked for in someone else, maybe you're outgrowing those. As an example, maybe you've prioritized the way that someone looks or the things that they do, and maybe those have always been important to you when you've been dating. You might now be thinking more about someone's values or someone's lifestyle or the way that someone communicates. You may be realizing that you've learned things through your dating experiences or through your relationships that you're now learning to prioritize when you are pursuing romance or when you are interested in having a relationship with someone. Now, this doesn't just have to do with dating. This can also be in friendships and communities. And for a lot of you, this is also going to have to do with taking time to reflect on the intimate relationships that you had growing up, the relationship that perhaps you had with friends or family members, or even the relationship that you have now with your inner child or with children in your life. If you are a parent, this will likely have a lot to do with your children, and it may also have to do with how you balance the relationship that you have with a spouse or with a partner, or if you are dating someone, and how you are balancing that with the relationship you have with your children. For some of you, this may have to do with thinking about children, thinking about bringing children into the world, thinking about what that means to you if that's something you want to do. And because eclipses can be very much a turn of a page, an end of a chapter, seeing something from the other side of the coin, you may be noticing that, again, something you thought you didn't want or you wanted isn't what you are pursuing anymore. As an example, perhaps you thought that you always wanted to have children, and maybe at this point of your life, you're realizing that that's not actually a priority for you. Or maybe you've thought that you didn't want children, and you're realizing that that is something you want to pursue. These are the things that may be coming up with that 5th house emphasis on this solar eclipse. This is a really great time to do some inner child work, to look back into the past and see the things that have formed your ideas, your beliefs, and your romantic cycles today. Some of you may also have encounters with people that you dated in the past or with people from your childhood, and it may be really healing for a lot of you to have certain conversations with people from your past, or to talk with a current friend or partner about these things that are going on within you, perhaps related to your desires, your priorities, and your values in relationships and dating. Now, the 5th house can also have to do with how we express ourselves, have fun, and just have a good time. And some of you may also be noticing that the way that you used to have a good time isn't how you want to have a good time anymore. Some of you may be realizing that certain habits in your life are not really serving you. You may be having to emphasize your health in certain aspects of your life, and you may just be outgrowing certain dynamics that used to fulfill you. If a lot of you used to get a lot of fulfillment from a party scene or from certain environments environments, you might just be noticing that you're outgrowing those dynamics. And perhaps some of you are also realizing that you need a bit more play in your life. Some of you may be getting into a new hobby and exploring things that allow you to express yourself more, whether this is through how you present yourself or whether this is something that you are putting into a project, painting something, creating something, whatever it may be. A lot of you may be exploring that self-expression. Now, on the other side of this, we have the lunar eclipse in Taurus in your 12th house at the end of the month on October 28th. So this is a pretty hidden place to Gemini, which means that some of you may feel that something is going on, but you can't quite see it, you can't quite understand it, but around the eclipse, it may become more obvious or evident. For a lot of you, this may be something that's going on internally, like you're feeling a certain way about something, but you don't really know why you're feeling that way. This may be a time where it will be really important to pay attention to the events or experiences or conversations that are connected to certain emotions that are coming up for you. For instance, let's say that you have a conversation about something and afterwards you're feeling really excited and you're like, why am I feeling so excited? This can be a good time to understand what happened in that conversation, what you discussed in that conversation that contributed to inspiring you or making you feel good. At the same time, some of you may be having experiences where you're not really feeling good afterwards and you're wondering why you're feeling a certain way, mentally, physically, emotionally. And this can be a good time, again, to kind of take a review of the events or experiences or conversations that may be contributing to an emotional reaction that you're having, or specifically to something that is coming up within you. Something else with this eclipse is that a lot of you may just feel exhausted. You may need some rest. If you are wondering if you should sign up for that extra thing to do right around the eclipse, and if you already have a really packed schedule or to-do list, I would gently advise you to take some time to yourself, take some time to rest, because you may just feel a little bit more exhausted than usual. Sometimes that's because our astral body, our physical body, is doing things that our mental mind cannot always understand. And that's why it may be important to just take the time you need to rest, even if it doesn't logically make sense. And the question that can be helpful for journaling on or reflecting is, what needs to be put to rest in your romantic cycles or relationships? And how are your desires serving you or not serving you right now? Okay, Geminis, thank you for watching, and I wish you a fulfilling and transformative eclipse season. Cancer placements. So we start this eclipse season off with a solar eclipse in your 4th house of home and family and emotions, 4th house to Cancer, and because it's in Libra, that is also a cardinal sign, so it is going to square the Cancer placements, which means that this solar eclipse may put a little bit of pressure on you to do something, but the outcome of it may be better than you expect if you're willing to take a step forward with something. At the same time, we have the lunar eclipse that will happen at the end of this month in Taurus in the 11th house to Cancer. So this is going to really highlight the top of your chart, the sights that you are setting beyond you. This is going to be a time to really think about how you want to be seen, how you are showing up, and really having clarity on what you are pursuing in your life, especially if you feel that there have been past events that have been clouding your vision. So specifically thinking about this solar eclipse, this is really going to highlight the things that have happened in your life that have gone on as far as you can remember. The 4th house in the bottom of the chart is really highlighting where you're from, your family, your origins, your ancestry, and also the deep-rooted emotions within you. So some of you may feel that you've been in a cycle that has kept you looking into the past for a while now. You might be reflecting on things or processing things, or perhaps that's something that you're being called to do right now, is to really get a clear idea of what has happened in the past. And this is where this eclipse season might help you to actually do that and to understand that there's a difference between looking at the past, understanding it, working through things, versus living in the past. And this eclipse season may show you that if you truly want to be able to show up in your present life, in the present moment, there is a necessity on being able to release anything that has you continuing cycles from the past. This is going to deal a lot with how you might have a mental story or perspective around something. This eclipse season is going to give you a really good opportunity to change the script, change the narrative, rewrite the story if it isn't working for you. If you have a story about something in your childhood that isn't serving you, is the story necessary? Some of you may have experiences that have been coming to the present or coming to the surface, and you've been seeing something from a different perspective. And maybe this perspective is showing you that the way that you were viewing someone in your past, a family member, or even the way that you might be viewing a younger version of yourself, maybe there is something that wants to shift within that perspective. If you have a relationship in your life that has continued to feel exhaustive or draining, or you perhaps have felt like a victim in a circumstance with someone, this eclipse season might kind of shake you up a bit to show you that in your life right now, you might have an opportunity to free yourself from the imprisonment of a story that you've been telling others or telling yourself. An example of this could be that as a child, you may have experienced things that were a bit difficult. You may have gone through a period of time that was very difficult. And when you're thinking back to those times of your life, you might immediately go to the script or the narrative as to what happened or the difficult emotions that you experienced. This eclipse season may show you that by actually going into the experience and healing it in some capacity, whether you're doing this with a professional in counseling, whether you're doing this through body work, through somatic experience, or whether you are simply just deciding that you don't want to continue living in that story, this eclipse season might give you the pen to rewrite something in your life. And maybe it means that you're going to see the story a bit differently, see something in a new way. I do a lot of somatic healing in my own life, especially at this time right now. And one of the things that I've been experiencing as a really positive effect of doing somatic healing is sometimes when you look at a story so often, but you don't tap into the emotions underneath it, that story can have a certain texture or tone or color to it. And let's say that there's a story that goes on that's very gray and it's very painful. When I have started to do somatic work around those experiences, sometimes I'll have these breakthroughs where something that previously felt really painful and gray and dreary, all of a sudden, once I process those deeper emotions in my body, I'll actually remember the experience differently. I'll remember that the sun was shining, or that there were birds outside, or I'll remember laughing about something that I had forgotten about. And so in my own experience, this has been really helpful for working through things from the past because it helps me to live more in the present and remember that both are true, that something may have been painful and uncomfortable, but there were also some positive moments or experiences in my body or in my life. And maybe those weren't always at the same time, but only remembering the bad can often keep us in that. But having the ability or the freedom to remember the full spectrum of life can often be an invitation to show up in the present moment. So that is something that I have been working on, and that may be something that is helpful when looking at the transits for Cancer right now. In this eclipse season, you may notice that something that has gone on in your life for a long time, whether it's a story, an experience, a pattern, the way that you are showing up in something or attracting something, or the way that you see yourself. It could have a lot to do with your identity as well. There may be something like that that may be expired. It's time to turn the page. It's time to get a fresh perspective on something. And for everyone with eclipse seasons, it's usually just dealing with something that's inevitable. But specifically for you Cancer placements, you may notice that this requires actually taking some action in some area of your life. And the lunar eclipse that we have in Taurus in your 11th house, this is really showing you where there's a pathway to growth, where if you take the first step, the second step may show up. Or if you take a chance on something, it may get a bit easier. That said, a lot of you may be first dealing with the fears that you have around doing that. Right now is a really great time to practice what it feels like to be courageous as it relates to moving forward in your life versus staying in something that feels like a comfort zone of your past. And a question that can be helpful to journal on or think on through this eclipse season for you Cancer placements is, what emotional cycle is ready to be completed or released from your past so that you can see your future from a clear and fresh and inspired perspective? Leo placements. Welcome to eclipse season. The solar eclipse that we have on October 14th in Libra is going to be in your 3rd house. So this is going to have a lot to do with communication, with your local environment, with a neighborhood or neighbors, and it may also have to do with your sibling relationships as well. For some of you, this can have to do with technology or your transportation too. And the lunar eclipse that we have in Taurus at the end of this month on October 28th, that is going to be in your 10th house. And the 10th house deals a lot with career, with publicity, with the way that you're seen, and really with what you are pursuing. The dynamic between these two is going to set the tone for this eclipse season, which means that as we open up this eclipse season, really opening the energy on your 9th and your 3rd house axis in Aries and Libra, a lot of you may be realizing that you've reached a point in your career or in your personal life where you need more tools, resources, or information or people on your team to help you achieve something that you are pursuing. Some of you may have a project that you've been working on, or you may have reached a certain level in your career, and you're realizing that you need more skills, or new information to help you really do it in the best way moving forward. Some of you may be completing a cycle in your career or a project that you've worked on for a long time, and you may be getting to a point where you can appreciate the skills that you have developed over the course of so many years of learning something or practicing something. And you may now be realizing that you've learned those skills, you've figured those things out, and you can kind of add them to your tool belt. And at the same time, there might be a new level of opportunity presenting itself to you, which requires you to become a student again. Some of you may have even reached a certain level of expertise with something in your life, and although you may be an expert in that area, there may be something new in your life that you may need to become a student within, and perhaps even take on a very humbling perspective in accepting that you don't know how something works, or that there's a lot to learn about something that you haven't done before. And this is where this solar eclipse that is opening up this eclipse season is going to give a lot of you an opportunity to practice what it feels like to be a student, to learn something new, to be okay with not knowing how something works or with not knowing the outcome to something. You may be used to other people asking you questions about something, and right now may be a time where you are the one who needs to ask those questions to others. This may specifically have to do with communication in general. Oftentimes, because communication is something that we all do and we all engage with in some form or another, there's often an association with communication where we may think that we just know how to do it and we don't need to think much about it. But as miscommunications are very common, especially right now in the age of the internet and the world, and people having many different kinds of conversations across different time zones and cultures and with different subject matters, it's really important to understand if we are communicating effectively. And there may be an emphasis on this in your life to understand if the message that you are trying to deliver is getting across. Maybe there's something that you have wanted to express to someone or to a group of people or within a community or an environment, but maybe the message isn't really getting across. Maybe you're feeling misunderstood, you're feeling that people don't value what you're saying, or you're feeling that the way that you're going about something isn't working. And that's why this eclipse season may give you a really great opportunity to try something differently. Perhaps the message at the core of it doesn't need to be changed, but the way that you are delivering the message does. On another side of this, a lot of you may be noticing that you're having conversations come up this eclipse season that gives you an opportunity to practice skills that you've learned. It may be specific to an environment that you're in, to people who you live with or live around, with roommates, or it may also have to do with family members and specifically with siblings. Some of you may have conversations at this time that don't feel effective or that don't feel healthy. And this is where you might be presented with an opportunity, perhaps through a confrontation or through conflict, that is giving you a chance to try something differently in the way that you're expressing yourself and in the way that you're listening to others. And for a lot of you, this is going to have to do with your career. This is going to have to do with where you are setting your vision in your career. If there's a project that you want to work on and you're realizing that you cannot do it alone or that you need more resources to complete it, this may be a time through this eclipse season where you are pursuing those resources, or you're asking the question in conversation, you're getting clear, you're making a plan about something, and you might be noticing that you want to bring other people into this process with you. Some of you may be realizing that you've done things alone for a long time in a certain area of your life, and this may no longer be a time of your life where you can do it alone. You may have to ask for help in some area, and that experience in itself may give you a lot of lessons or may help you to see something from a new perspective. There may specifically be an opportunity with this eclipse season to open up to dynamic conversations that allow many different opinions. You may be presenting an opinion that's different from someone else's, and this eclipse season may give you an opportunity to have all of those opinions on the table and for it to still be a safe place. For a lot of you, this is going to be in your work environment, or this is going to have to do with something that deals with a more serious situation, whether this is a project you're working on, or whether this is something dealing with something you own, where you're living, or with a decision that you have to make in connection or collaboration with other people. Some of you may be learning healthy ways to set boundaries and to express your needs that doesn't harm or affect other people, but rather gives them an opportunity to hear what you're saying. And that's where the way that you're expressing something may be more important than what you're expressing. So knowing the message that you have and then practicing different ways of delivering that message may be really important this eclipse season. And a question that can be helpful for you Leo placements to journal on or reflect on this eclipse season is, how are your current communication habits and systems serving you in your relationships? And if something is not serving you anymore, how can that be reflected on or refreshed? Virgo placements, welcome to eclipse season. This first eclipse that we have on October 14th in Libra is going to be in your second house. The second house deals with assets, finances, money, ownership, and control. And the eclipse that we have on October 28th in Taurus, that is going to be in your ninth house of exploration, travel, adventure, education, spiritual beliefs, and really just the way that you're viewing the world. And so the combination of these two eclipses throughout this eclipse season is likely going to bring a lot of you a new perspective on the things that you are pursuing financially, on the way that you are organizing your assets, on the way that you are taking ownership, accountability for things in your life, and also on the things that you are trying to control. Something that's really important to mention for you Virgo placements is that Venus is in your sign through this eclipse season, and Venus is ruling both of these eclipses. So in an interesting way, you all are going to be at the center of a lot of the action around this eclipse season. In fact, you might hear about Aries and Libra or Taurus and Scorpio really being the highlight of this eclipse season, but a lot of you may also be in that mix, especially if you are connected to anyone who has the Aries, Libra, Taurus, or Scorpio placements as well, or some of you may have those placements in your chart too. That said, with Venus in your sign ruling these eclipses, there's an emphasis on looking at the way that you're going about something and really understanding how the perspective you have on something may often be what's connected to the outcome. One of the major themes I'm seeing for you all is understanding the things that you have control of in your life and the things that you don't have control of. If there's something in your life that you've continuously tried to control and to manage and to organize, and it just isn't working, and perhaps it's even causing some pain or suffering, this eclipse season may help you to take your hands off of those controls and to realize that you are in a better place when you surrender or accept something. And some of you may also be going through a series of experiences in your life that deals with understanding your ownership of something and understanding what it means to work with others as it relates to shared assets. Saturn is in your 7th house, so a lot of you might be in serious commitments at this time of your life, whether you have recently been married, you've been in a long-term partnership, or you're buying a house with someone, or you're investing in something with someone. This is going to be an experience that goes on for the next couple of years for a lot of you. But right now, during this eclipse season, you may be getting a fresh perspective on how to healthily engage with others as it relates to things that you own. As an example here, you might own a shared property with someone or a house with someone, or maybe again, you are in a relationship, you're talking about marriage, or you are in a partnership in a marriage. When you are in these experiences, there's an inevitable balance that's required when it comes to sharing assets and ownership with someone. If you are in control of all of it, but if someone else is technically a part of it, then that's not really a balance. And on the other side, if someone else is controlling an entire experience, or if they are in charge of something, but you are also an equal partner in something, that's not really balanced. This solar eclipse in Libra is asking us to really bring balance to these situations. And so a lot of you may notice that there's something being revealed to you through this eclipse season that is showing you where the balance is not fair, or it is not working for you. Something may have been balanced before, but perhaps recently there has been a power dynamic or an imbalance in something that is no longer working. And a lot of you may have your attention on this in your life right now. Maybe there's a very specific situation that's been going on that you feel is not fair or just, and you are advocating for yourself, or maybe there's a situation that is requiring you to advocate a bit more. That said, the overall theme that I'm seeing for you Virgo placements with this is learning to get a new perspective on this situation. And perhaps that means taking a step away from it. Because if you are trying to control something continuously and it's not working, or you're trying to do the same thing continuously and it's not working, you may be realizing through this eclipse season that it's time to step away from it. Whether that means completely closing the door on something or just stepping away from the way you've been approaching it. If you have continuously brought something to a conversation or a relationship and the message is not getting through, or the result is not occurring the way that you would prefer it to, or that there is not a solution being presented to a problem, this may be a time through this eclipse season that you're noticing that there's other options available. And you may be asked to see something from the higher path, to take the higher road on something, not in a way that puts you above anyone else or that makes you more righteous than anyone else, but more so that you might be realizing that you cannot control other people's perspective of you, you cannot control other people's actions, but you can control how you're showing up within it. And this may be an experience that goes on through this eclipse cycle, perhaps even into next year, that gives you the opportunity to practice what it means to surrender and to release that control. And if you have been trying to control something for a while and it's not working, and you actually release it this eclipse season, you may notice that there's actually an immediate effect that shows up that allows you to feel more comfortable, more safe, more at ease, just realizing that something that perhaps you thought you were in control of or you had to take charge of is actually better off being surrendered to or giving that control to someone else. With the lunar eclipse happening in your 9th house, a lot of you may also have events that are connected to travel, relocation, planning something in the future, or having an experience that embraces other cultures or other perspectives. Listening to someone else's perspective without trying to fit your opinion in there might be really liberating at this time. Some of you may be also developing new opinions in your life, new thoughts, based off of what you are learning or taking in right now. Overall, a lot of you have probably gone through somewhat of a spiritual experience over the last couple of years, whether you've taken in new information, you've adopted a new perspective in your life. And as we close out the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, a lot of you may be realizing that this is becoming more ingrained in how you're showing up in the world. And a question that can be helpful for you Virgo placements through this eclipse season to journal on or to reflect on is, how can you shift your perspective or your mindset to free yourself from the feelings of imprisonment in your life? And on top of that, you may also want to ask yourself, what is it that feels that it is imprisoning you? And maybe some of you don't feel imprisoned at all. And to that, Hands off. Okay, thank you Virgo for watching, and best of luck through this eclipse season. Libra placements. Wow, welcome to this eclipse season. As a lot of you I'm sure can imagine, this is going to be a pretty big one for you all because we are opening up to these eclipses in your sign. We have the solar eclipse in Libra on October 14th, and yes, this is taking place in your sign. So a lot of you may really feel the effects and the impact of this eclipse season with this Libra eclipse kicking us off. And the one thing that I really want to emphasize as we go into this eclipse season for you Libra placements is the theme of inevitability, of things just feeling inevitable. And you might go into this eclipse season feeling like there's certain things you are trying to control or hold on to, or that you don't want to change. But the nature of eclipse seasons is that things will inevitably happen. So whether you are trying to control something or not, there may be something that just becomes out of your control. And that can feel scary if you are in a situation already where you feel that there's a lot out of your control. Often we will try to control the things in our lives to help us have a sense of safety or stability in situations that feel unpredictable. And this eclipse season may show you that there is something in your life that maybe you don't know the outcome of. Maybe you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you can't see down the road. And it's okay, because this gives you an opportunity to practice what it feels like to surrender to the things that are outside of your control. And when we're thinking about inevitability, this may mean that certain things happen during this eclipse season that maybe they don't make sense right away. Maybe you don't have the full picture. And the best advice I can give you for going into that is asking yourself during these moments, how can you release control around them? How can you surrender to what is happening and accept that there is a higher vision or picture that maybe you just can't see yet? That said, some of you Libra placements might be like, that's been my whole life. Please don't tell me any more of that. And to that, I would just say that a lot of you may actually feel that this eclipse season is what you have been waiting for. If there's something that has felt really stuck in your life, like the wheels are just not turning, you're waiting for the engine to start and it's not starting, if you're just waiting for some motivation or inspiration in your life, this eclipse season may bring it. That said, there's also an emphasis on knowing when you need to take action. And some of you may be in a situation where you haven't been taking action on something, you've been waiting for something to happen and it's not happening. And that's where this eclipse season may be showing you that the inevitability of a situation is that you're being pushed to take the first step, to do something yourself or to try something. And for a lot of you, this may feel scary. This may feel like something you've never done before. But that's where the South Node being in your sign now is giving you an opportunity to release fears, to release blocks, to release anything that hasn't served you. And if you have felt that in the past, it's been hard to release those fears, or it's been hard to step away from something, this eclipse cycle that is really opening up now and that started on April 19th, earlier this year with this solar eclipse in Aries, this eclipse cycle that will go through 2024 is giving you an opportunity to shed the layers of yourself that have held you back from trying something that you've wanted to do, from putting yourself out there, or from exploring different parts of yourself, of your life, and of your relationships. And speaking of relationships, this eclipse season is going to have a lot to do with relationships, especially for you, my Libras. That is because the North Node is in your 7th house now. So the emphasis is on relationships. And so a lot of you may be noticing that this eclipse season is actually showing you safer ways to show up in relationships that doesn't require giving up parts of yourself or repressing parts of yourself or catering to someone else's needs, but rather shows you what it means to be in a stable, equal, secure relationship with someone else. The biggest message that I'm seeing for Libras is that it's going to require some courage. It might mean that you are shedding a layer of who you used to be and you're discovering a new part of yourself, but you might need some courage to bring that into your relationships, or you might need some courage to step into a room that you want to be in, but you may not feel that you deserve to be there. This is the season kicking us off into this eclipse cycle that is going to allow you to start taking those steps forward if you believe in yourself enough to have the courage to do it. And if you feel like you don't believe in yourself enough to do that, or you don't trust yourself enough to do that, Again, that's the beauty of this eclipse cycle, is that by the time that we really get through these eclipses in Aries and Libra going into 2024 and through that year, a lot of you may come out of 2024 next year feeling like a brand new person. Talk to some Scorpio placements as they just had the South Node go through their sign. And a lot of you might be experiencing some of those shifts already happening in your life of what it feels like to have the South Node in your sign. The South Node is asking you to release. It's asking you to let go. And if you're holding on to something out of fear that you can't let it go, that nothing else is going to show up, or that if you let it go, everything's going to fall apart, this eclipse season might push you a little bit over the edge just to show you that it's actually safe to let it go. It's actually safe to move forward. And again, a lot of you, this is going to have to do with your relationships. Maybe there's a conversation that you need to have and you have been afraid to have it for months or for years. This eclipse season might ask you to have it. And a lot of you may also be noticing that the things that you thought you wanted in relationships are not serving you anymore, or the way that other people are seeing you or expecting you to show up in relationships may not be available anymore. This is a time to release things like people-pleasing or patterns around codependency or anything that has stopped you from being your full self in relationships. If you find yourself often catering to other people's needs or desires above your own, this is a time to really learn how to balance it. A relationship is ultimately a partnership. Doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is. And there may be a relationship specifically in your life that's giving you an opportunity to practice this. What does it feel like to show up in a healthy way, to be honest with others, to not repress parts of yourself, and to still feel that you can rely on those relationships? And this is where the emphasis of the eclipses may show you that some relationships in your life aren't serving you in that way anymore. That said, the lunar eclipse that we have on October 28th in Taurus is in your 8th house. So there's going to be an opportunity to really let something go in a ritualistic way, in a ceremonial way, in a way that allows you to feel at peace, especially if you work with those energies. If there's something that you feel you are ready to release but you don't really know how, this can be a really good time to journal on it, to do a ritual around it, or even just to have a physical somatic release. You could dance, you could sing, you could just move your body, you could do something that is more therapeutic or that is more guided. You could see a professional to help you deal with some things. Whatever it may be, this lunar eclipse at the end of the month may give you an opportunity to feel that you are at peace with an ending in your life, or to develop a practice around releasing things through ceremony or through a ritual or through a way that allows you to feel that you can actually close the door. And a question to ask yourself or to journal on or reflect on with this eclipse season Libra placements is, in which relationships in your life are you choosing yourself versus which relationships in your life are you losing yourself? All right, Libras, best of luck with this eclipse season and thank you for watching. Scorpio placements, welcome to eclipse season. This is going to be a really major chapter change for you Scorpio placements. And that's because the lunar eclipse that we have that closes out this eclipse cycle on October 28th is going to really close the door on the eclipses that took place in your sign and in Taurus. And you can think back to the eclipse that we had earlier this year on May 5th, which was the lunar eclipse in Scorpio, because that is going to have some connection to closing this door, or what that may look like as we close out this eclipse cycle with the lunar eclipse in Taurus on October 28th. That said, we start this eclipse season with the solar eclipse in Libra, and this is going to be in your 12th house, which means that it's in a part of your chart that is not as obvious or is not as noticeable as some other areas. And this is especially true for Scorpio risings, but just in general, it's going to be behind Scorpio. And what this means is that you may notice that some things are changing in your life right now under the surface, but you don't see it outside of you. It's kind of like when you have a feeling that is showing up and you can notice a change within how you're feeling about something, but you can't really point to why you're feeling that way, or you can't really tell what is happening that can be connected to that feeling. Scorpios tend to be known to being pretty intuitive or being aware of things that may occur in the future. And so some of you may be noticing that you're tapping a bit more into those skills right now, that you're noticing that your intuition is a bit stronger right now. That said, often when we are asked to listen to our intuition, it's not going to be something that we see outside of us. It's not like something is presented to you and it's like, ah, there it is, my intuition. Sometimes that's what happens later on. But the intuition is actually when we're sensing something that we can't yet see. It's not yet obvious. You can also look at this as being, as having faith. And when you have faith in something, this is also when you can't yet see it, but you're believing that it's there, or that it would be, or that it could be, or that it is. And so for a lot of you Scorpio placements, this eclipse season may have a lot to do with trusting your intuition or your faith, and more so looking at the perspective of something from your intuition, from your deeper knowing, versus what's being presented to you. Because there's a situation in your life that may come to the surface. Perhaps it's something that's gone on over the last couple of years through these eclipse cycles, that it may seem like it is this big event, or it is something that's really obvious, and it may entice you to react to it. But the intuition that you will likely feel, it might be different than what is being presented to you. So an example of this is, let's say that there is a situation in your life that you have faced before, or it feels like it's a big event that happens during this eclipse season. And maybe in the past, you would have responded to it or reacted to it in a certain way. But through the eclipse cycles that we went through with the South Node in your sign, a lot of you have likely shed layers of yourself that you've outgrown, or that you know weren't healthy, or that you are still working on letting those layers of yourself go. This eclipse season may give you an opportunity to do that by not responding to something in the same way. So something may show up that seems like it requires this big reaction, or maybe there's a specific relationship or a situation that is kind of evoking a reaction out of you. And this eclipse season may give you an opportunity to listen to your deeper knowing and to your intuition, or to the things that you've been working on internally, that gives you the toolkit to not respond in the same way that you used to. Maybe you've learned that it's better in a situation with a spouse, or with a partner, or with a friend, or with a coworker, or with a family member. Maybe you've learned that it's better, instead of having a conversation at a certain time, or going into a conversation that doesn't really get anywhere, maybe you've learned that it's better to step away. It's better to take a breath. Maybe you've learned that if you're feeling that there's a topic that comes up that's very triggering for you or for someone else, or it's very sensitive, instead of reacting to it in a way that you perhaps used to, you might be learning that it's better to say, I don't want to talk about this right now, or let's put this to rest, or I'm going to step away and come back. I'm going to take time to myself, and then I'm going to come back. This eclipse season may give you kind of a final push to really see how far you've come in the reactions that you have. And it doesn't mean that if you have a reaction that isn't the best reaction, that you should beat yourself up over it, or that you somehow have not mastered a lesson of the universe. That's not the case. But more so, you might learn from whatever scenario takes place. So let's say that something comes up and you do have a reaction that you used to have in the past, or you react in a way that you just don't really like. You might be learning at this time that these experiences are here to help guide you in better directions. Some of you may also have experiences around this that are very specific to a relationship, or a marriage, or a commitment in your life. And that is because the eclipse that we have, again, closing out this eclipse cycle on October 28th, will be in your 7th house of relationships. Some of you may be choosing relationships in your life at this time that are helping you to grow or to pursue a path of healing. Some of you may be experiencing a lot of transformation in your life naturally through the eclipse cycles that we've had. And as the nodes are now in Aries and Libra, this may be a time where you're learning that you are ready to build a foundation on that healing, or on the spiritual transformation that you've had. So for instance, if you have had certain habits in your life that worked for you in the past, but you have now gone through this major transformation in your identity and how you see yourself, in the things that you care about, and how you want to show up, this experience that the eclipse season may offer, and leading into 2024, it may show you that it's time to build a foundation on those values or on the things that have changed within you. And this may mean reorienting yourself around people who are on that same path, or prioritizing certain relationships in your life that are helping you or supporting you in this, and giving you an opportunity as well, perhaps, to support other people as well. That said, a lot of you may also notice that these experiences or these themes are showing up specifically in your work environment or in your living situation, especially for those of you who work from home or who work in a very intimate setting. You may be noticing that your relationship with coworkers or the people who you're working with are really the most important relationships to focus on right now, because you may be spending a lot of time with these people or in these dynamics. And this may be where you're getting an opportunity to show up in a better way, to react in a better way, or to reveal more parts of yourself to people who may not know the full you, and understanding the balance between when it's appropriate to show a certain part of yourself to someone based off of the trust that you have with them, and when it may not be appropriate to reveal certain parts of yourself. Now, Scorpios tend to be pretty good at knowing when to not reveal certain parts of yourself, but this is where this eclipse season may show you that certain people you are learning how to trust, you are learning how to be honest with. And at the same time, you may also be understanding that other people are giving trust to you, and that it's very valuable to honor the trust that other people are giving you, and to know that the things they share with you or the sides that they show you may be specific to how they trust you, and that honoring that trust is just as important as giving that trust to someone else. And a question that can be helpful to journal on or reflect on during this eclipse season for you Scorpio placements is, which relationships in your life are giving you an opportunity to evolve within? All right, Scorpios, best of luck with this eclipse season. Sending you lots of love, and thank you for watching. Sagittarius placements, welcome to this eclipse season. Sure be eclipsing. This eclipse season will start off with an October 14th solar eclipse in your 11th house. Now, this 11th house has a lot to do with communities and friendships, and really how you are seen, how you're seen in those community dynamics, and also how you're seen on a larger scale. If any of you are doing things online, on social media, this may be a time where you're really noticing how other people are perceiving you, and also how you want to be perceived, or how you are presenting yourself to the world. Some of you may be also going through a review of the goals and the intentions that you have or that you have had, and just seeing if they measure up to your current activities and projects and systems in your life. And this is going to be a really big theme all across the board for you during this eclipse season, because the lunar eclipse that we have on October 28th is in Taurus, and that is going to be in your 6th house. And the 6th house deals a lot with the systems and the routines and the organization that we have around things. The 6th house can also deal with things like your work environment, with health and the way that you are taking care of yourself. And it can also deal with things like pets and taking care of animals. So all of those things may show up for you this eclipse season, but a lot of this I'm seeing for you Sagittarius placements is going to have to do with understanding the tools and the systems, the routines, and the habits that you have that are connected to the goals that you are pursuing. For example, if there's a goal that you have in your life that you are working toward, but if the systems in your life are not working as you are pursuing that, this is a really great time to review those systems and to figure out better solutions. Some of you may have things that go on in private in your life, or that feel that they go on in private, but you may notice that it is trickling over to a more public experience. And that's because the solar eclipse is lighting up a very public part of the chart connected to Sagittarius. So a lot of you may notice that there is a light on you right now that is asking you to bring things to the surface and be honest about a situation. And for a lot of you, you may notice that it's not that you're choosing to be transparent or to be honest about something, but that rather something that you thought was very private or very hidden is being revealed more publicly. This is a time online where we may see certain people who have Sagittarius placements being at the center stage or having a spotlight on them around certain things. And other people may be coming to the surface or bringing things to the surface and being honest about something going on in their life. And on a more personal level, you may notice that within your relationships, you are feeling called to be more honest or transparent with certain communities or with certain friendships. There may be certain friendships that have only taken capacity in certain areas of your life, such as friends that you just have a good time with, or friends that you just see in organizational settings. And you may be feeling that you are looking for a bit more personable relationships in those communities right now. Maybe you're feeling that you want to get closer with certain people or share more parts of who you are in your private life with the people who you're engaging with. A lot of you may also be trying to figure out a plan to something that you are pursuing. This could relate to your work environment, how you earn income, and this can also have to do with organizing things in your personal environment. So reorganizing your home, moving. Some of you may be moving around this time or planning a move. This can have to do with the things that you physically own. And that has a lot to do with the fact that, again, the lunar eclipse in Taurus on October 28th, because it's in Taurus and it's in your 6th house, this will deal a lot with the physicality of life, because it is also dealing with things that are very physical, Taurus being an earth sign. A lot of you may also be dealing with things that are showing up in your physical body. The 6th house deals a lot with health. And so some of you may be having situations come up that deals with your health, and you may be being asked to focus your attention on your health. If you have a goal for something, or if you're pursuing a project, but if your health is not up to par, if you do not feel healthy, if something is going on in your life that needs immediate attention, or if you foresee something happening that will need more attention later on, essentially you cannot show up in your life if you are not healthy. And so there may be an emphasis on really focusing on your health at this time, your physical health, even your mental health, but especially your physical health. And for a lot of you, this may have to do with your environment. If there's something environmental that feels that it's been affecting you, this could be a living situation, the place that you're living in, even the city that you're living in, or just your routines and your lifestyle. Ultimately, the way that we're living is our life. Our routine, in and out, the day through the night, that is our life. And so the things that you are doing in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening is creating the lifestyle that you have. Sometimes it's hard to face that truth if we don't have hobbies or habits that we are enjoying or that are good for us. But that's where eclipse season, for instance, is a really great time to take a look at that and actually make a change. Sometimes it feels like we can't make changes in our lives that we want to make, but eclipse season is a really great opportunity to do those things and to make those changes. And oftentimes it just happens naturally because it is the time, the stars have aligned. So if there's something in your life that you want to revamp, revitalize, focus on, reorganize, or create a new habit or routine around, this eclipse season is going to give you a really great opportunity to do that. And if you are looking for some more support in communities or in friendships, you may find that support as well, especially starting off this eclipse season, but also going into 2024 through the eclipse cycles in Libra and Aries. That said, because the South Node is in Libra and that is going through your 11th house, in order to step into those communities or in order to find that support that you're looking for in certain domains of your life, it may first require that you step out of other communities, other friendships, or that you step away from a persona that you have had that has kept you in certain dynamics that are no longer serving you. This may be a time where you are kind of rebranding yourself in a way that allows you to be more authentic or more honest in who you are or what you're going through, so that you can attract those kind of people in your life as well. And a question that can be helpful for you Sagittarius placements to journal on or reflect on through this eclipse season is, how can you be honest with yourself about the systems, routines, and people in your life who are helping you to live your most aligned path? And if there's anything that is not serving that, how can you gracefully step away from that? Capricorns, welcome to eclipse season. We start off this eclipse season with the October 14th solar eclipse in Libra, which is going to be in your 10th house. And we close out the eclipse season with the lunar eclipse in Taurus on October 28th, which will be in your 5th house. So thinking about the emphasis on that 10th house on the solar eclipse in relation to Capricorn. So Libra is another cardinal sign, as is Capricorn, which means that Libra is going to be squaring Capricorn placements. So a lot of you may feel that this solar eclipse is really pushing you a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but ultimately it will be for the best. Now, the South Node is highlighting the top of your chart here, which means that although it's a solar eclipse bringing light to something, it may be revealing to you where there's something that you need to let go of in your career or in the perception that you have about the goals that you're pursuing. There may be something that is presented to you as an opportunity right now in your career that you are moving forward with, but it may require that you embrace a new way of showing up in this opportunity. And a lot of this is going to have to do with the things that you have been learning and developing and practicing in your personal life. If there's been certain lessons that you have learned or integrated, these opportunities that may be showing up for you through this eclipse season is going to give you a chance to really integrate the lessons into these circumstances. And some of you may be noticing that there is an extra emphasis on not going back to the way that you were doing something before, especially in your career. With the North Node being at the bottom of your chart in your 4th house, ultimately, it seems that a lot of you will have an emphasis on your home and your family and your emotional health, especially when you're thinking about your career and about your goals. As an example, if some of you have been really focused on work for a long time of your life, if you have prioritized work over anything else, and no, I'm not speaking to a Capricorn stereotype, but take it if you will. If a lot of you have prioritized work over anything else in your life, you may be noticing through experiences that you've had over the last couple of years that you're reprioritizing your values at this time and that you're noticing that you want to create more of a balanced life. Now, the solar eclipse that we're having is in Libra, so it is all about the balance. And because it's in your 10th house, it's asking where you can find more balance in your work and your home life. What does it mean to create more space in your life for relationships, for connection, or even just to feel at peace in your actual home environment, or in doing something that doesn't need to have any result attached to it? For instance, creating something or pursuing something or doing something just for the fun of it that doesn't have to turn into a career. This may be something that a lot of you are exploring or understanding through this eclipse cycle, is that something that you may be really passionate about may just be a passion. And in the past, perhaps there's been things that you've pursued that you felt that it needed to turn into a career in some way. And you might be realizing that the nature of having a hobby or a passion is sometimes best honored by keeping it as a hobby rather than trying to turn it into something that you're doing for monetary gain or that you're doing for recognition or that you are pursuing on a day-to-day basis. And this has a lot to do as well with the lunar eclipse that we will have in Taurus on October 28th because it is in your 5th house. And the 5th house to Capricorn deals a lot with creativity and expression and play, and it also deals with children and the inner child. This can also have connection to the mother, as you were once a child to a mother, all of you in some way, shape, or form. So there may be something that comes up for you through this eclipse season that really allows you to step into more creativity, self-expression, without feeling that you need to attach that to an outcome. Some of you may also have very specific circumstances that are going on related to children. Some of you may have children and you may find a focus on your children by the end of the month of October. If you do not have children, some of you may be thinking about children in your life, whether this is just a child that is in your family, a child that you are working with or that you know, or whether this is the idea of children in general. A lot of you may be learning that by thinking about children or being around children, you are allowing your inner child to come out as well, your inner child to be healed perhaps in certain circumstances. For instance, as an example, spending time with a kid and drawing or painting or singing or doing something just for fun may allow you to unleash that part of yourself as well, where you're doing something just for fun. Not to earn anything, not to put it on your LinkedIn, but just to enjoy it. A lot of you may have a passion that you have done for a long time, that you may also see that there is a career potential with this passion, but this eclipse season may ask you some important questions related to that, which may have to do with looking at the potential of a career in something that you're passionate about and understanding what it means to pursue something work-wise and how that may impact your creativity around something. Putting a bunch of pressure on a project that you were doing just for fun may take away the fun. Additionally, a lot of you may just be noticing that something is gradually changing in your life on a personal level, and it might be time to bring that to your career or to your professional life as well. This may look like bringing more of yourself to the work that you're doing. So for instance, some of you may be exploring creativity or self-expression in one area of your life, and this may be helping you to show up in a more free or liberated way in another area of your life. If something that you've been doing that has been really rejuvenating or exciting or expressive or creative in your personal life, something like that may be helping you to realize that it's safe to bring a bit more play or exploration or humor into something that is more professional or public. Ultimately, a lot of this is going to have to do with finding liberation in how you express yourself. In fact, by the time we complete this eclipse season, a lot of you Capricorn placements may feel that something that you felt was holding you back in feeling safe to express yourself, or if you felt like you had to be very serious about something, you might find yourself feeling a lot more free to just play and to have fun and to express yourself in healthy ways. And a question that can be helpful to journal on or reflect on through this eclipse season for you Capricorn placements is, what would it feel like to enjoy the journey of creation without attaching to the results? Okay, Capricorn, I hope that helps, and have a great eclipse season. Thank you for watching. Aquarius placements, Aquarii, welcome to the eclipse season. We start off this eclipse season with the solar eclipse in Libra on October 14th. And a lot of you may already know that that is your fellow air sign, which means that it will be trining your sign. And this is good. We like a trine. Trines are helpful for really embodying the energy that's happening in the other sign in your own unique way. And we know Aquarius placements love doing things in your own unique way. Am I right? That said, we have the lunar eclipse in Taurus on October 28th happening in your 4th house of home and family. The Taurus eclipse is going to be squaring your sign because Taurus is also a fixed sign. What this will look like this eclipse season is that you may have some events this eclipse season that open doors to certain things in your life and that close doors to others. And that's a theme for everybody, but for you, you may feel it a bit more intensely or a bit more precisely. You may notice that something is bringing you a lot of excitement or inspiration or joy or peace. We love some peace. And other parts of your life may be a bit more frustrating or aggravating or irritating. And sometimes that may be a challenge that is just a part of a process you're in. But in this case, during this eclipse season, you may notice that things that feel really frustrating or irritating may be hinting to you that something in that area of your life is ready to be alchemized, transformed, or released. Now, because this solar eclipse is happening in your 9th house, and this is also marking the illumination of the South Node in Libra, this is really going to bring attention to the beliefs that you have in your life. In fact, a lot of you Aquarius placements from now through 2024 are likely going to go through a massive change in the belief systems that you have. This may mean that the way you viewed something for a long time or the way you grew up viewing something may be shifting pretty radically. Some of you may even go to the opposite side of a belief that you had just to see it from the other end. And I share this because as we go into this eclipse season, the core of the experiences that you may have may point to your beliefs around something. If you have a belief around something and you have an experience happen in your life that goes against that belief, you may notice that things come up around criticism or judgment or fear connected to the juxtaposition of an experience that you're having versus a belief that you've had. So a lot of you may notice through this eclipse season that it's bringing attention or shining a light on the beliefs that you have. And some of this stuff may go to early childhood experiences or community experiences, or it may just also be knowledge that you've taken in at a previous point of your life that you may be outgrowing at this time of your life. Some of you may also find that, especially now, perhaps even starting in April this year when we had the solar eclipse in Aries, since then, a lot of you may be becoming a student in your life again. Some of you may actually be in school or pursuing a course or learning something in a more formal way, and others may just be really pursuing a lot of different dynamic information and knowledge, perhaps in various parts of your life. And this is because the nodes being now in your 9th and your 3rd house are really emphasizing taking in information, learning new things, and doing something in a different way with that information. So for instance, if you've had a certain identity around a belief system, or you've just had a knowledge base that really served you in the prior chapter of your life, this eclipse season may show you that that belief system or that knowledge base needs refreshed. It needs reviewed. And it doesn't mean that you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It may just mean that you are adding information to your perspective on life. This is a really great time because of this to embrace new information, new ideas, and new perspectives. And I share that as well because with the eclipse happening in Taurus, the lunar eclipse on October 28th, because it is in your 4th house and it's squaring Aquarius, this may be an emotionally reactive eclipse for some of you. You may notice that there are some conversations or experiences that feel very emotionally triggering or activating for you. Or you may notice that people around you are feeling very emotionally activated, perhaps through a dynamic that you have with them. So this is important to be aware of, because if you notice that there's a conversation that happens, an event that happens, an experience that happens by the end of this month that is very activating or that feels very emotional, this may be a really great opportunity to see where you can take in new information, learn something new, or open your mind to something else. This may be an opportunity to listen to someone else's perspective and to see how maybe the stance that you've had on something is changing or evolving. It doesn't mean that you have to conform to anyone else's way of viewing the world, but rather that it may be a really good time to just expand your own view of the world and to see how life is very paradoxical, and that often there are two things that can be true at the same time, even if they seem that they are opposite or opposing. And this may be a really great opportunity through this eclipse season to practice what that looks like in your relationships, in your family dynamics specifically. There may be a relationship that you have that continues to play on this certain record, and it's just repeating itself and repeating itself and repeating itself. This eclipse season may stop the record, may take the record off of the player, and may ask you to really start a new cycle or create a new dynamic in this relationship. And it's likely going to be done through communication, but communication comes from the perspective that we have. So there might be an opportunity to really see something from a different angle and get a new perspective on something, which then will allow you to communicate in a different way or to hear someone else in a new way. You might notice that this is a really good time to inquire deeper into what someone is saying by asking questions, asking how they feel about something, or asking what their perspective is on something. Again, not in a way that is putting some kind of a conflicting energy around a conversation, but rather realizing that you can have conversations with people and explore different ideas and perspectives, and it doesn't need to be a conflict or it doesn't need to be an argument. Of course, this requires that both parties are showing up to have those kind of conversations, but that's where this eclipse season for you Aquarius placements may give you an opportunity to see what it feels like to just show up as your best self in a conversation, to open your mind, to listen to someone else, to ask questions, and see what it feels like to show up like that not having any control of how someone else reacts or responds, but rather just notice if it shifts a dynamic in a relationship. And for a lot of you, this may be a very personal relationship, perhaps with a family member or with someone that you are living with. And a question that you can ask yourself or journal on this eclipse season Aquarius placements is, what are you still fighting for in conversation or in relationships that is no longer a priority or a value in your life? And how can you release that? Thank you for watching Aquarius placements and sending you lots of love into this eclipse season. Pisces placements, hello and welcome to eclipse season. Thank you for watching, and here is what you need to know about this eclipse season. So we start this eclipse season off with an October 14th solar eclipse in Libra, which is going to be in your 8th house or in the 8th house to Pisces. Now, this is kind of a blind spot to Pisces, but also probably the best blind spot you could have because it's very mystic, it's very deep, and it can provide some hidden treasure. That said, the 8th house often is associated with things ending, with grieving something, or with going through something in private. So I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a moment. The other eclipse that we have that will close out this eclipse season is the lunar eclipse in Taurus on October 28th. And this is going to be in your 3rd house. So a lot of you may notice that that eclipse has a lot to do with communication, conversations, perhaps moving things forward that you've had plans around, signing something, organizing something. And it may also have to do with your local environment, a home that you are in or a home that you are moving into, living circumstances in general, siblings, and transportation and technology. Lots of stuff packed into that 3rd house. That said, the biggest theme that I'm seeing for you Pisces placements is actually pointing back to Saturn being in your sign. Yes, again, Saturn is in your sign since March of this year. And so this is really putting a different taste on the experiences that you're going to have this year for the next few years, which means that an eclipse that might normally just be another eclipse is going to have more of an emphasis with Saturn being in your sign. So Saturn really deals with commitments and responsibilities, which is why this eclipse season is likely going to ask you to really look at the commitments in your life. A lot of you may be closing out a really long cycle or chapter in your life that deals with a certain level of maturity or accomplishment or achievement, or it can just deal with a project that you've worked on for what feels like a very long time. Some of you are going to be coming to a completion with something you've been working on, but it's going to open up more responsibility or more opportunity in your life. Opportunity often coming with responsibility. There's something that you are likely excited to move forward with in your life, but it may require committing to it a bit more securely. Meaning that if you have a really big project that you're working on, or if you have a big goal for something, or if you're seeing the potential of something in your life, this eclipse season may show you that it's time to really commit to it. It might be time to double down on something. But in doing this, it may require that you let go of something else that is not allowing you to commit to this thing in your life. As an example, let's say that you are pursuing a new path in your life. You're pursuing something that is going to work out for you in the long run, or you're doing something that may not be obvious right now, but it's setting you up for something in 4 years from now, or in 10 years from now, or just in general. Those kinds of things that come up in our lives that allow us to commit to something that will help our future self, oftentimes it's not something that's rewarding right away. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes it's not. And that may mean that there's some things in your life right now that provide you with a sense of immediate gratification or reward or sensation. And it may require through this eclipse season that you pay attention to what you are giving your attention and energy to, and to notice that if you're giving all of your attention to something that is only providing that immediate gratification or that immediate satisfaction, rather than balancing that with the things that are providing long-term structure or foundation in your life. Now with this, there's a beautiful magical middle of this, of being in the present moment. And that's where the things that we're doing in the present moment are perhaps all that we have. That's the entire experience. Having that perspective can allow us to see that by creating a better life for ourselves in this moment, we are setting ourselves up for a better life in the future. This may mean that you are working on something right now that, again, isn't rewarding right away, but you're finding joy in the work that you're doing. You're realizing that you don't need the results to feel the joy. You're realizing that you don't need the praise to feel satisfaction. And this eclipse season may show you specifically that the things that are going on in your private life are really a priority for you right now. Because the eclipse season is starting off in your 8th house, and that's where the South Node is going to be moving through for the next year for you, this is a very private place, which means that not everything that you're doing right now may be obvious to others. You may be going through emotional experiences that are very internal. You may feel that other people aren't really experiencing the same things because for you it may feel that it's on a very visceral level. And this doesn't mean that it has to feel isolating or lonely, but rather that there's an invitation to embrace your unique experience. At the same time, we are having the lunar eclipse in your 3rd house. So the lunar eclipse is going to close out the series of eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio. And with it being in your 3rd house, this is giving you a real great opportunity to engage in conversations, in friendships, in community settings that allow you to express yourself, and especially as it relates to how you're feeling. If some of you have been going through a more private experience around feeling a certain type of way about something, or just processing some emotions about something, maybe you haven't had the words, or you haven't felt ready, or you haven't felt that it's been safe to express something that's been going on in your life or within you. You might find that through this eclipse season, especially by the end of it on that lunar eclipse, because it's highlighting your 3rd house, you may find that you're starting to trust that you're in the right environment or setting or circumstance to be able to talk more freely or openly about how you're feeling about something. You may have someone in your life who you feel that you can express yourself to, and it feels safe to do so. This could be a sibling, this could be a neighbor, this could be someone you're working with, this could be someone that you are just in proximity to, someone that is perhaps only in your life for a specific reason that deals with where you're at right now, or deals with something you're working on right now. There is an opportunity to really engage with people in a way that allows you to express yourself honestly. Some of you may also be reconnecting with friends from the past during this eclipse cycle, and you may have a conversation that allows you to just feel very seen. You may be able to feel that something that you've been going through in private, someone else is understanding what you're experiencing. They've been through it before. They have advice even, or they have information on it, or they are just listening. For some of you, this may be an experience with a therapist, or with a counselor, or with a teacher, or someone who is guiding you in a more fundamental or functional way. That said, with the North Node in your 2nd house, there is really an emphasis on paying attention to the things that you are pursuing in your life that may not pay off right away, but are worth it in the long run. This may also, for a lot of you, have to do with bringing a long chapter to a close. If you've been working on something, this may be the eclipse season that allows you to complete it, to close the door on something, and to feel that you have achieved or accomplished something that you've worked very hard on. And a question that can be helpful to reflect on or to journal on through this eclipse season is, how can you commit to the vision that you have for your life right now and practice discerning between long-term reward and short-term gratification? Okay, Pisces, well, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great eclipse season. Thank you everyone for watching this video and for tuning into this. I hope you all have a great eclipse season, and the biggest message that I can share for this eclipse season is that with eclipses, things become inevitable, and sometimes there's no action that is needed on our part, but paying attention to the things that are naturally happening and shifting and changing is our opportunity to accept and surrender to what is. I appreciate all of you who are here, and if you happen to be seeing this video but did not see my last video, I would definitely encourage you to check that out, as I share an update as to why I took a long break from social media. I talk about a handful of different things, and I also share end of the year readings for all zodiac signs. So you may find even more insight in that. All right, thank you for watching, and I hope everyone has a great eclipse season. Don't be afraid of it, it's just transformation. Just kidding, we've got this. Have a great eclipse season, and thank you for watching.